Record, Mr. Clerk.
Voting aye, Senators Aguilar, Albright, Arch, Armendariz, Ballard, Blood, Boston, Bostar, Boston, Brandt, Brewer, Breezy, John Kavanaugh, Clemens, Conrad, Day, DeBoer, Decay, Doran, Dover, Dungan, Urban, Frederickson, Holleran, Hanson, Hardin, Holcroft, Hughes, Ibaugh, Jacobson, Kauth, Linehan, Lippincott, Lowe, McDonald, McKinney, Mosier, Merman, Raybold, Reapy, Sanders, Slama, Vargas, Von Giller, Walls, Wayne, Wishart. Not voting no, none. Not voting Senators Michaela, Kavanaugh, and Hunt. Vote is 47 ayes, no nays, 2 present, not voting, none excused, not voting, Mr. President.
LB 705 passes with the emergency clause. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, final reading, gross legislative bill 705, introduced by Amendment 38, bill for appropriating appropriation appropriate funding, thank you, provisional legislative 700 section, declaring emergency being named seasonal to right approaching using general fund section 23, 185, fund 24, state part budget program 25, and provisional legislative 70500, so the total expenditure permanent per diem funds program section not exceed 77% for 729,000 for the feature 21. Secretary of approach to the for the social security funds, 85,000 pro Department of Education 5 educated provisional legislative 7 is that include appropriation for which you any fixation sex funds to be such purpose include appropriations to address attached funds purpose including the amount of the purpose and turning of cash funds including cash fund program returns not security proficiency to cash fund including amount of the program extraordinary increase special education the programs extraordinary including the program retirement including amount of programs that extension purpose per diem super appropriate for behavioral health savers pathway college behavioral health program participant paid in the coverage incentive including the privilege program cash funds which be including appropriation cash for purpose no expenditure permanent temporary per diem from the section where person to college funds from the education trust fund, the college trust fund, the excellence cash funds, for the different legislative some including appropriation cash 700 for cash fund. If we don't professors, there's some cash fund for total expenditure improvement of 70 section 77 section 5 for general fund for board of trustees, state college program for there's legislative 106 section for appropriation 170 fund to do this in Nebraska fund the cash fund for state patrol. Program fund any conversion legislation 100 legislative so total expenses permanent students per diems funds program in the section exceeds 107 so 197 for the national fiscal 25 section 7 since emergency exists this act takes effect when passed and approved according to law.
All provisions of law relative procedure having been complied with, the question is, shall LB 705A pass with the emergency clause? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
Voting aye. Senators Aguilar, Albright, Arch, Armendariz, Ballard, Blood, Boston, Bostar, Boston, Brandt, Brewer, Breezy, John Kavanaugh, Clemens, Conrad, Day, DeBoer, Decay, Doran, Dover, Dungan, Urban, Frederickson, Holleran, Hanson, Hardin, Holcroft, Hughes, Ibaugh, Jacobson, Kauth, Linehan, Lippincott, Lowe, McDonald, McKinney, Mosier, Mervin, Raybold, Reapy, Sanders, Slama, Vargas, Von Giller, and Walls, Wayne, Wishart. Voting no, none. Not voting Senators Michaela, Kavanaugh, and Hunt. Vote is 47 ayes, no nays, 2 present, not voting, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. While the legislature is in session and capable of transacting business, I propose to sign and do hereby sign Legislative Bill 562, Legislative Bill 562A, Legislative Bill 705 with the emergency clause, and LB 705A with the emergency clause. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, a few items quickly. Communication from the governor and gross legislative bill 753 and 753A were received in my office on May 24, 2023. These bills were signed and delivered to the Secretary of State on May 30th, 2023. Signed sincerely, Jim Pillen, Governor.
Speaker Arch, you're recognized for a message.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just, I want to go back and talk about an announcement I made earlier today, and this has to do with today's agenda. So we anticipate that bill revisers will have what we need back here by around 6 o'clock, perhaps earlier. And so the intention is now to go through our confirmation reports, and we will not break for dinner tonight, but rather we will adjourn when those bills come back. So I think we'll be adjourning around the dinner time, so we won't have dinner this evening. We will simply adjourn, but again, we need to stick around. We'll get through our confirmation reports, I would anticipate, and then we need to stick around.
Mr. Clerk, for items.
On the agenda, the General Affairs Committee on H.
Senator Lowe, you're recognized to open on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I stand in favor of appointing John Hiller as being reappointed to the State Electrical Board. He has served 15 years on the board so far. He is a fourth-generation Nebraskan and a second-generation electrician. During his tenure, he has focused on safety electrical installation in the state. The State Electrical Board was created in the legislature in 1975 and can be found in statutes in sections 81-2101 and 81-2144. There are 7 members on the board who are appointed by the governor for a 5-year term. So today we're going for the reappointment of John F. Heller. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Lowe, you're recognized to close. Waives closing. The question is the adoption of the confirmation report. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
40 ayes, no nays on adoption of the report, Mr. President.
The report is adopted.
Mr. President, next item, the General Affairs Committee would report favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of Susan E. Lutz, Matthew John Monheiser, and John Pulverenti to the Nebraska Commission on Problem Gambling.
Senator Lowe, you're recognized to open on the report. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll take a little bit more time on this. The Commission on Problem Gambling was created by the legislature in 2013 and can be found in the statute sections 9-1001 to 9-1007. The commission is made up of 9 members who serve 3-year terms. This year we heard one new appointment and 2 reappointments. The new appointment is John Pulverenti of Omaha. He works as an attorney and has a background in iGaming and sports betting regulations. He worked in the industry in 2018 before sports betting became legal at the federal level. A reappointment from Norfolk, Susan Lutz. She has served 10 years on the commission. She works as an accountant and was asked to share her accounting expertise with that body. And the reappointment from Sydney, Matthew Monheiser, he fills one of 2 positions on the commission that are filled with individuals who have used problem gambling services. He wants people to know where to go if they get in trouble with gambling. With this, I ask for your green votes on these 3 appointments.
Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Lowe, you're recognized to close. Senator Lowe waives. The question before the body is the adoption of the report. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay.
Have all those who voted care to? The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk?
36 ayes, no nays on adoption of the report, Mr. President. The next report from the gentleman from the, Natural Resources Committee. The Natural Resources Committee report favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of Donald P. Battle to the Nebraska Resources Committee.
Second, 2023, to consider gubernatorial appointment of Donald Beatty. Mr. Beatty is a reappointment to the Nebraska Natural Resource Commission to serve a term from January 1, 2022 until May 31st of 2026. He represents agricultural interests on the commission. The Natural Resources Commission's responsibility includes soil and water conservation, flood prevention, watershed protection, and flood control. There's 13 appointees by commission members representing river basins are appointed by individual caucuses of natural resource districts. 14 members, additional members are appointed by the governor subject to confirmation by the legislature. One of those shall represent municipal users of water. One shall represent each of the following categories: agribusiness interests, agricultural interests, groundwater irrigators, irrigation districts, manufacturing interests, metropolitan utility districts, municipal users of water from a city of the primary class, municipal users of water from a city of the first or second class or a village, outdoor recreation users, public power districts, public power and irrigation districts, range livestock owners, and surface water irrigators, wildlife conservation interests. Mr. Beatty is a farmer from Lexington, Nebraska. He is the current vice chairman of the Nebraska Natural Resource Commission, and he has also served on the Nebraska Farm Bureau Board and several other boards. He appeared in person at the hearing, and the committee voted 8-0 to advance his confirmation to the floor. I ask for your green vote on Mr. Donald Beatty as a reappointment to the Nebraska Natural Resource Commission.
Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Bosselman, you're recognized to close. Senator Bosselman waives. Colleagues, the question before the body is the adoption of the Natural Resources Committee report. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed, nay. Have all those who voted care? Have all those voted that care to? Mr. Clerk, record.
38 ayes, no nays, Mr. President, on adoption of the committee report.
The report is adopted.
No,
Just what they
Next report, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, Natural Resources Committee report favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of Dan Hughes to the Game and Park Commission.
Senator Bosselman, you're recognized to open on your report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, colleagues again. The Natural Resource Committee held a confirmation hearing on March the 1st of 2023 to consider the gubernatorial appointment of Dan Hughes. Mr. Hughes is a new appointment to the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission to serve a term from February 2nd, 2023 until January 15th, 2027. The Nebraska Game and Parks Commission is comprised of a 9-member board. 8 of the commissioners serve districts across the state. The 9th serves at large. Commissioners serve in a voluntary capacity. The mission of the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission is stewardship of the state's fish, wildlife, park, and outdoor recreation resources in the best long-term interests of the people and those resources. The Game and Parks Commission was tasked with this mission when the legislature created the precursors of their organization in 1879. First with the Nebraska Fish Commission, followed by the Nebraska Game and Fish Commission in 1901. Management of our state parks would later be added to the mix. The Nebraska Game and Parks Commission is funded primarily by the sale of hunting and fishing licenses, as well as through the sale of park permits and goods and services at state parks and recreation areas. Mr. Hughes is a farmer and a businessman from Venango, Nebraska, way out west. He served as a state senator from the 44th Legislative District from 2015 to 2022. During this time in the legislature, as you all know, he chaired the Natural Resource Committee for several years and later served as a chairman of the executive board. He appeared in person at the hearing, and the committee voted 8-0 to advance his confirmation to the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. I ask for your green vote on the confirmation of Dan Hughes to the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Bosselman. Senator Erdman, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in strong support of Dan Hughes for appointment to the Game and Parks. Dan is a common sense environmentalist, as well as protecting our natural resources as a farmer. He understands the issues with Game and Parks better than most. I believe he'll be a common sense voice on that board, which is well needed. Seldom do we get a chance to appoint somebody who understands how wildlife affects one's operation. And so, Dan, I appreciate that you've stepped up to put your name in. And if I had 2 votes, I'd give you both of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Erdman. Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know when his confirmation hearing was, but it was a while back, and I made a commitment to former Senator Hughes that I would not filibuster his nomination or attempt to block it. I think that he will be a great addition to Game and Parks, and I look forward to him being a thorn in their side, as they probably deserve. So you might not be able to give him 2 votes, but I will be voting for Senator Hughes. So you can count that towards your 2, Senator Erdman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh. Senator John Cavanaugh, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would echo Senator Erdman's comments and actually Senator Michaela Cavanaugh's comments. I appreciate Senator Hughes' willingness to continue to serve the state of Nebraska, and I know that the pull of his land is strong and that the interest in serving the state overcomes that pull. I appreciate him continuing to serve the state of Nebraska in this capacity. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator John Cavanaugh. Senator Wayne, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. If you are a conservative, you are a liberal, you should oppose the nomination of Dan Hughes. It doesn't take long for you to look through his bio for you to understand why you should oppose his nomination. If anybody can be in the legislature for 8 years and still want to serve in any capacity, he's not fit for any confirmation report, is what I truly believe. So that is why I will be not voting for him, but I will be voting for him, but I will not be voting for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wayne. Senator Hughes, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hughes is just a great last name, so we should all vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Senator Lowe, you're recognized to speak.
If you're a white-tailed deer, I would not be voting for Senator Dan Hughes right now. He has a vengeance on you, and he would like to take you with one shot. But I will be voting for Senator Dan. Well, no longer senator. Yeah, he's still a senator. You never lose that title. So I will be voting for Dan Hughes on this appointment.
Thank you, Senator Lowe. Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Bosselman, you're recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. there's one other thing I think that as we look at Senator Hughes, Chairman Hughes, he has broadband at his house, and I don't. With that, vote green, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bosselman. The question before the body is the adoption of the Nebraska Game and Parks report. All those in favor, vote aye. All those opposed, vote nay. Have all those who care to voted? Mr. Clerk, record.
40 yeas, no nays, and adoption of the committee report, Mr. President.
The committee report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for next item.
Mr. President, the Nebraska Retirement Systems would report favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of Thomas E. Henning to the Nebraska Investment Council.
Senator McDonald, you're recognized to open on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, colleagues. I rise to present Mr. Thomas Henning, who has been appointed to the Nebraska Investment Council. Mr. Henning was appointed last December 2022 by Governor Ricketts for a 4-year term beginning January 1st of 2023. The Retirement Committee held a hearing on Mr. Henning's appointment on February 23rd of this year and was advanced to the full body 5-0 vote with 1 member absent. Mr. Henning's background shows an extensive experience with banking, the insurance interest, most recently with Austerior Life, where for more than 30 years he served as chair, president, CEO of Austerity and its companies. In 2022, he transitioned to a non-executive chairman of the board. Mr. Henning's banking background earlier in his career included roles as president and COO or CEO of National Bank, Commerce, and Overland National Bank. Mr. Henning's 40 years of involvement in leadership roles in the financial sector, I believe, will make him an outstanding member of the Nebraska Investment Council. I urge you to support this appointment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator McDonald, you're recognized to close. Senator McDonald waives. The question before the body is the adoption of the Nebraska Retirement Systems report. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have all voted that care to? Mr. Clerk, record.
39 ayes, no nays, on adoption of the committee report.
The Retirement Systems report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for items.
Mr. President, next item, the Transportation Telecommunications Committee would report favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of Kirk Langer to the Nebraska Information Technology Commission.
Senator Mosier, you're recognized to open on your report.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first nomination is Kirk Langer to the Nebraska Information Technology Commission. It's a 9-member group that provides advice, strategic direction, and accountability on information technology investments within state government. The NITC prepares the statewide technology plan, provides biennial recommendations to the governor and the legislature, adopts technical standards, guidelines, and architectures. The committee heard the appointment of Kirk Langer of Lincoln on February 7th. He has been appointed to a 4-year term and will represent elementary and secondary schools. He currently serves as the Chief Technology Officer for Lincoln Public Schools, and the committee recommended his confirmation with no dissenting votes. Mr. President, I would move the adoption of the committee's report.
Thank you, Senator Mosier. Senator DeBoer, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to stand in favor of the adoption of this confirmation report. I serve as the legislature's member on the NITC, and I have been to a meeting already with both of the nominees, and they are quite exceptional. And I wanted to speak on their behalf and say that I think they are going to be strong members, and therefore I would urge your green vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator DeBoer. Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Mosier, you're recognized to close. Senator Mosier waives. Colleagues, the question before the body is the adoption of the Transportation and Telecommunication Committee confirmation report. All those in favor, vote aye. All those opposed, vote nay. Have all voted that care to? Mr. Clerk, record.
38 ayes, no nays on adoption of the committee report.
The confirmation report passes. Mr. Clerk, for items.
Mr. President, next report, the Transportation Telecommunications Committee would report favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of Russell L. Creechbaum to the Board of Public Roads Classifications and Standards.
Senator Mosier, you're recognized to open.
The T&T Committee held, thank you, Mr. President, a public hearing on February 7th to consider the appointment of Russell Creechbaum Jr. to the Board of Public Roads Classifications and Standards. It's part of the Department of Transportation's of overseeing annual construction planning and fiscal reporting for state and local roads, as well as the application of minimum design, construction, and maintenance standards and functional classifications of public roadways. The board consists of 11 members. 2 represent the Department of Transportation, 3 represent counties, 3 represent municipalities, and there are 3 lay members. On Tuesday, February 7th, the committee held a confirmation for the appointment of Russell Creechbaum of Central City. He's filling a vacancy and will serve until November 23, 2023. He's filling a county board seat and has served as a member of the Merritt County Board for the last 9 years. He's also a retired 32-year employee of the Union Pacific Railroad. He appeared before the commission and responded to all questions. The committee voted to recommend the appointment of Russell Creechbaum without dissent, and I would ask the legislature to vote to confirm that appointment.
Thank you, Senator Mosier. Seeing no one else in the queue, you're recognized to close. Senator Mosier waives. Colleagues, the question before the body is the adoption of the Board of Public Roads Classification and Standards Committee report. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have all voted that care to? Mr. Clerk, record.
36 ayes, no nays on adoption of the report, Mr. President.
The confirmation report is approved. Mr. Clerk, for items.
Mr. President, next item on the agenda, the Transportation Telecommunications Committee would report favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of John C. Ernst to the Nebraska Motor Vehicle Industry Licensing Board.
Senator Mosier, you're recognized to open on your report.
Thank you. The Transportation and Telecommunications Committee held a public hearing Monday, February 13th to consider the appointment of John Ernst to the Nebraska Motor Vehicle Industries Licensing Board. It's a 10-member group that has the duty to license and regulate motor vehicles, trailers, and motorcycle dealers. It also licenses manufacturers and distributors and their representatives. They license wreckers, salvage businesses, auto auctions, and additionally, they consider consumer complaints against licensed auto dealers. The board has 10 members and they serve 3-year terms. The chair of the board is the director of motor vehicles. On Monday, February 13th, we held a confirmation hearing for the appointment of John Ernst. He's filling a full 3-year term, and he would be the first congressional district new car dealer representative. He serves as the dealer principal for the Ernst Auto Center in Columbus and Ernst Toyota in Columbus. He appeared before the committee and responded to all questions. The committee voted to recommend the appointment 7-0-1, and I would encourage the legislature to vote to confirm the governor's appointment.
Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Moser, you're recognized to close. Senator Moser waives. The question before the body is the adoption of the Nebraska Motor Vehicles Licensing Board confirmation report. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have all voted that care to? Mr. Clerk, record.
35 ayes, no nays on adoption of the report.
The report is adopted.
Mr. President, next item, the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee reports favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of James Edgar to the Nebraska Information Technology Commission.
Senator Moser, you're recognized to open on your report.
Mr. President, are we going to consider each of these individually, or are we going to consider this as a group of 5?
Mr. Clerk.
Senator, we had these reported out of committee individually, so we'll take them up individually.
Individually. Okay. All right. We have the nomination of James Edgar from Aurora. In addition to Kirk Langer, who was presented earlier, the committee met and conducted public hearing on February 21st and advanced the appointment of 5 individuals to the Nebraska Information Technology Commission. It's a 9-member group that provides advice, strategic direction, and accountability on information technology investments within state government. They provide biennial recommendations to the governor and the legislature, and they adopt technical standards, guidelines, and architectures. The NITC is assisted by 6 advisory groups: the community, education, e-health, GIS, state government council, and a technical panel. And the first of these nominations is James Edgar of Aurora. He's being nominated for a 4-year term representing the general public. He is general counsel for Hamilton Communications. I would encourage the adoption of this part of the report.
Seeing no one else in the queues, Senator Moser, you're recognized to close. Senator Moser waives. Colleagues, the question before the body is the adoption of the report. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have all voted that care to? Mr. Clerk, record.
38 ayes, no nays on adoption of the report, Mr. President.
The confirmation report is adopted.
Mr. President, next item, the Transportation Telecommunications Committee report favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of Leah Barrett to the Nebraska Information Technology Commission.
Senator Moser, you're recognized to open.
Okay, the second of the nominations in this group is Leah Barrett of Norfolk. She would be serving a 4-year term representing Nebraska communities. She's from Norfolk, and she's president of Northeast Community College. I would appreciate your vote in supporting the committee on this nomination report.
Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Moser, you're recognized to close. Senator Moser waves. Colleagues, the questions before the body is adoption of the confirmation report. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have all voted that care to? Mr. Clark, record.
34 ayes, no nays on adoption of the report, Mr. President.
The confirmation report is adopted.
Mr. President, next item, the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee would report favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of Brett R. Blackman to the Nebraska Information Technology Commission.
Senator Moser, you're recognized to open.
Thank you. This is the third of 5 nominations for Brett Blackman of Omaha. It's a 4-year term representing post-secondary education, and he's the CIO officer at UNO. The committee would greatly appreciate your support in adopting this report.
Thank you, Senator Moser. Seeing no one else in the queue, you're recognized to close. Senator Moser waves. Colleagues, the question before the body is the adoption of the confirmation report. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have all voted that care to? Mr. Clerk, record.
31 ayes, no nays on adoption of the report, Mr. President.
The confirmation report is adopted.
Mr. President, next report, the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee would report favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of Katie Niemoller to the Nebraska Information Technology Commission.
Senator Moser, you're recognized to open on your report.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the 4th of 5 nominations. Katie Niemoller is from Papillion. She would have a 4-year term representing the general public. She is a registered nurse at Children's Hospital, where she focuses on clinical information assist, which I assume is a technical kind of GIS or kind of an information technology job. We looked at her nomination favorably in committee. We'd appreciate your support in approving this part of the committee report.
Thank you, Senator Moser. Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Moser, you're recognized to close. Senator Moser waves closing. The question before the body is the adoption of the Transportation and Telecommunications Confirmation Report. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have all those voted who care to? Mr. Clerk, please record.
36 ayes, no nays on adoption of the report, Madam President. The report is adopted.
The report is adopted.
Madam President, next item, the Transportation Telecommunications Committee report favorably on the appointment of Zachary J. Melander to the Nebraska Information Technology Commission.
Senator Moser, you're welcome to open on the confirmation report.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the 5th and final nomination to be approved. Zachary Melander is from Omaha. He would serve a 4-year term representing the general public. He is Business Systems and Analytics Manager for the Omaha Zoological Society. All these individuals appeared before the committee and responded to questions, and the committee without dissent recommends confirmation of all 5. We would appreciate the adoption of the committee report.
Thank you, Senator Moser. Senator McDonald, you're recognized. See no one else in the queue? Senator McDonald? Waves? Senator Moser, you're recognized. Close. Senator Moser, waves closing. The question is the adoption of the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee report. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
35 ayes, no nays on adoption of the report, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Madam President, next item, the Business and Labor Committee report favorably on the gubernatorial appointment of John Albin as Commissioner of the Department of Labor.
Senator Reby, you're welcome to open on the confirmation report.
Ms. President, colleagues, John Albin is a reappointment as the Commissioner of the Nebraska Department of Labor, a position he was first appointed to by Governor Ricketts and this body back in 2015. Mr. Albin has a personal history with the legislature, working as a legislative aide, committee counsel, and bill drafter before entering into the practice of law. Mr. Albin earned his jurisdictional JD from the University of Nebraska College of Law and joined the Department of Labor in 1990 as an administrative law judge, followed by a move to the legal division in 1993 and became general counsel in 2000. In 2014, he received a legal award of merit from the National Association of Workforce Agencies Legal Issues Forum for his contributions to the unemployment insurance program. He also led the Department of Labor's reemployment program in a 2016 Full Employment Best Practices Award. The pandemic presented the Department of Labor with multiple unprecedented challenges, including historic levels of unemployment claims and benefit payments. The department saw nearly 7 times as many claims filed in the year 2020. That was 298,793 initial claims. I have shared with you a bar graph of the claims filed during the pandemic as an explanation as to why the unemployment workload challenged. I'd like to repeat a little bit on that because the claims on that went from, in 2019 was $64.4 million, and in 2020 it went up to $1.2 billion. Mr. Albin led the department in the processing these claims, citing it in his testimony to the committee that it truly was a team effort that led to the success in keeping the department working. I might add, given the number of claims, they were working weekends and evenings and make a yeoman's effort in terms of keeping up. Commissioner Albin has been criticized for failing to respond to audit reports on the Department of Labor. Commissioner Albin has responded to each comment of the audit and organized collective action plans as appropriate. The Department of Labor has recently partnered with DHHS and Blue Cross Blue Shield to launch the Ignite Nebraska program, which helps underemployed and unemployed individuals to find jobs in the information technology field. The department also paired with DHHS to create the SNAP Next Step program, assist SNAP recipients in finding new or higher paying employment through job training and work research search assistance. Mr. Albin believes the Department of Labor can only expand upon the success of these programs in the coming years, specifically already launching plans for a process improvement for the unemployment benefits system. There are no letters in opposition to Mr. Albin's appointment, as well as no testimony opposed out of committee. For these reasons, the Business and Labor Committee has advanced John Albin his appointment as Commissioner of the Nebraska Department of Labor. Thank you, Ms. President.
Thank you, Senator Reapy. Senator Blood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Friends, I want to tell you that I do not take this lightly, that I know I am talking about somebody's employment, but there are things that we need to get on record that do not pertain necessarily to only the time of pandemic, but prior and after as well. And I want to say that I want to tell you that I actually applaud the employees and how hard they worked and the long hours that they worked. And I want to make sure that they know that that was not unnoticed. But we are talking about leadership today. In fact, it was many of the staff members who brought the department to light, showing that they knowingly overpaid and wrongly approved claims, by the way. I want to talk about leadership because if we expect a department to function properly, it starts at the top. And so for those of you that didn't put it into your recycling bins, I gave you many handouts today, and one of them was the audit that Senator Reapy mentioned. And by the way, this came out 6-2. It did not come out 8-0. That was not mentioned in Senator Reapy's introduction. And I was one of the two that voted against it. And I'm hoping the other senator will also speak. So I'm going to walk you through a few things, and I'm going to talk several times on the mic. It's unfortunate we don't have more people in the room right now. But at the very least, we need to bring these things to light, and you need to be aware of what you're voting on today. So if you look at your audits, December 16th, 2020, there's a cover letter in the audit from the state auditor at that time, Charlie Jensen, and reference the Nebraska Department of Labor and Commissioner John Albin. And it's noted in that report that certain internal control or compliance matters related to the activities of the Nebraska Department of Labor were very concerning to our state auditor's office. So you can start with inadequate controls, improper payments, and possible fraudulent claims. The APA, which is the Auditor of Public Accounts, if you don't know what that acronym is for, sent confirmation requests to a small group of claimants and employers in response to fraud concerns related to the CARES Act. The procedure revealed the following: failure to perform key control procedures, potential fraudulent claims based on confirmation responses, ineligible payments to inmates, payment to individuals with excessive wages. And you can find all of this, by the way, on page 2 of that audit that is on your desk for those of you who did not already place the reports in recycling. Additionally, as noted on page 5 of your audit, it was noted that due to the lack of controls, there was an increased risk for fraudulent claims, and improper benefits paid during the last quarter of fiscal year 2020. Again, the auditor office did a risk analysis of a small demographic. For those that responded, 157 received benefits, 24 did not receive benefits, 65 of the mailed items were undeliverable, which flags the state having inaccurate or false mailing addresses, and 250 received no responses, which smells of further potential fraud, but the magnitude of that potential fraud is unknown. If you move to page 7 of the audit, it was discovered that an APA staff member, so somebody in the auditor's office, had a fraudulent claim filed in her name. Even though the DOL received a letter from the auditor's office responding that the person was still employed, the DOL sent back a response saying they were eligible for benefits. Additionally, 36 state employees were randomly checked, and out of those 36 employees, they found 3 more claimants that were identified and still employed. So right here in our own house. If we roll forward to page 9, you'll note that PUA federal requirements were not met for all applicants for unemployment, and the department lacked controls to ensure the claimants were eligible, which unfortunately opened us up to more potential fraud. On page 11 of the audit, you'll note that the department stopped wage matched procedures, and I understand they did that to speed things up. But what happened was, it was noted in the audit that 25 of 60 random claims tested had wages in excess of 25% of the weekly benefit amount. In other words, the numbers were wrong. There are many concerns that are documented in this auditor's report, enough that you would hope a department head would take immediate actions going above and beyond to make sure that these issues did not continue and to better lock down our security. However, historically, that did not happen, and I'll speak more on it on my next time on the mic.
Thank you, Senator Blood. Senator Blood, you're next in the queue, however.
Thank you, Madam President. So if you're not done so already, you need to look at the audit from cover to cover. Many of you remember several public hearings that were held in reference to the Department of Labor and how certain issues were handled during the pandemic. One of the hearings was for LR 158. This interim study examined the accuracy of payments by the Department of Labor to recipients of state and federal payment programs, including but not limited to unemployment insurance. The intent was to examine policies and procedures of both state and federal agencies when benefits are overpaid and how the decisions are made to recoup those payments. During that hearing, Commissioner Albin was clear that until the pandemic, the department was not using dual authentication. Now that's a security issue. If you're not familiar with it, Google it so you know what it means. Frankly, when you're dealing with tens of millions of dollars on a regular basis, it's common practice that government entities utilize multi-factor authentication. The three reasons that you do this is because you want to build a stronger defense against cyber controls. Cyber security insurance now requires that, and you want to streamline the login process. So 10 months later, after this conversation, the Nebraska Department of Labor's web vendor, Geographic Solutions, was hit with a cyber attack and taken offline, which also took us out of business for a couple of days. So people couldn't get their claims filed, nor could they get their payments. The security breach impacted those who depend on unemployment benefits to make ends meet, as Nebraska had to stop providing benefits until this was corrected. Now, you may ask why I'm concerned about our vendors. This is another example of the DOL's lack of knowledge when it comes to cybersecurity, and like it or not, these are issues that prove over and over to be a hurdle to this department's success. Although I am clearly not an employee of the executive branch, I stay informed when it comes to cybersecurity issues. During the pandemic and before, fraudsters had shared on social media and the dark web, which states Nebraska was an easy mark. Nebraska was one of those states specifically mentioned. And to be frank, one of the reasons we were not hit as much by cyber criminals was because our payouts compared to other vulnerable states were lower. And so although we were an easy mark, we were not as inviting as some of the other states that were targeted. The cyber criminals are very specific in their method, such as selecting foals from key states that had the highest probability of paying the benefit. For those of you not familiar, foals is a slang term used by hackers and data resellers and other criminals and refers to packages of individuals identifying information. In other words, their full information, hence the slang word foals. Foals usually contains an individual's name, social security number, birth date, and account numbers. By the way, if you're on social media and share your birth date in high school, for example, and then are also on a site like Ancestry.com, you have pretty much made almost all security question answers available to those ne'er-do-wells. Add in the ability to purchase this information packets on the dark web with cryptocurrency, and you've got a very lucrative business. You add in things like the Equifax breach, and we know that Nigerian crime rings and the Russian mafia fork out $2 in cryptocurrency on the dark web to help file these fraudulent claims. And what DOL seemed unaware of in the April 26, 2021 hearing is that CAPTCHA, which is also used by Nebraska, is easily bypassed with the use of software. This is likely also a DHHS problem, but that is not the topic today. In January, Commissioner Albin came to a hearing for his reappointment. During that time, he self-promoted ways, which you heard from Senator Reapy, he felt the department had improved. During that presentation, he stated the department would be utilizing LexisNexis. LexisNexis is an analytics company, and there's been widespread concerns about the data that they glean from their clients. They will be gleaning a lot of information from Nebraskans using the DOL portal. When asked if there was an opt-out option for consumers, Commissioner Albin was not sure in his response. According to the transcripts, verbatim, there are provisions in the agreement about the data and the protection of the data and the sharing of the data, but I haven't read through the contract lately, so exact quote. And I'll continue on my next turn on the mic.
Thank you, Senator Blood. Senator Blood, you're next in the queue, and this is your third opportunity.
Thank you, Madam President. And I'm hoping that one of my peers will yield me time so we can finish. Friends, when folks are in charge of tens of millions of taxpayer dollars, you should have definitive answers on questions such as I previously mentioned, because we all know that most companies that glean data, even though they say there are no secondary things that they do with that data, ultimately do share and sell your data, as that is how they generate income. It's not the software, it's the data. Consumers are often not aware that they can opt out, and it should be our priority when we protect Nebraskans to negotiate that in any contract we do, that we make sure that not only is there an opt-out opportunity, that we actually just don't allow anything as far as data sharing goes here in Nebraska, but I can tell you that we do that at multiple levels of government. So I do appreciate the follow-up letter that I received from the commissioner, but again, the response tells me that the same knowledge that I've had since coming to this legislature is that the DOL is yet again one more government agency who relies too heavily on others to tell them what they need technology-wise and not having the experience to ask the right questions. I ask you today, where does the buck stop? Many of you have given speeches about not wasting taxpayer dollars. These were taxpayer dollars. Be they state or be they federal, these tax dollars are still collected majorly from the working men and women of Nebraska. It is ultimately the commissioner's job to be responsible for the quality of the instruction, research, and extension programs conducted within this department. And yes, people make mistakes, but it's my expectation that people learn from those mistakes. Instead, we received answers like, well, it happened in other states too. And not once did I ever hear the commissioner take any personal responsibility. What I continually heard were reports on how he felt things were going, and when asked questions on technology, he was unaware of the definitive answer. When you write a business plan, you always include or should include worst case scenarios that may affect the success of your business. And I can tell you that your municipalities that do actual strategic planning always include worst case scenarios. For example, in Bellevue, we had a plan when the river floods into our community. Everyone has a role to play. We know where the command station will be and who to contact for that information. We should expect no less from our executive branch, and the fact that the Department of Labor was so unprepared for the pandemic tells me that they did not have a what-if plan put into place for emergencies. And as they moved forward, there were plenty of mistakes that were made, as is pointed out in the audit shared with you, and on the multiple articles that I shared with you today, including the one, again, where staffers pointed out that they were knowingly overpaying and wrongly approving claims. Regardless of the circumstances, people knowingly made mistakes over and over and over again. And ultimately, it is your department head, it is the commissioner who is responsible for those actions, because that is supposed to be where the buck stops. If you are being hacked, you should not then hire a contractor to provide you with bodies that had also recently been hacked. But the DOL did just that. Although under the gun,
1 minute.
Thank you, Madam President. To move things out quickly, not properly training those you hire or contracted created a disservice to Nebraskans. Those that were hung up on, disconnected, not paid, overpaid, given the runaround, and more, while many Nebraska families were in a state of panic needing this support. Other advanced fraudsters leverage social engineering to research additional data on persons behind the folds they are intending to use, like extracting their employer information. They usually use LinkedIn searches to do that. in order to append falsified historical W-2 forms in attempts to validate the account's legitimacy. Many victims only discovering their information was compromised upon receiving 1099-G forms in their physical mailbox come January for taxes owed on benefit compensation that they never received.
Time, Senator.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Blood. Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I would yield my time to Senator Blood if she would so like it.
Senator Blood, you're yielded 4 minutes, 55 seconds.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh, and thank you, Madam President. Commissioner Albin likes to drop the names of software, but doesn't come to understand their weaknesses. In April of 2021, he brought up participating in the Suspicious Actor Registry as one of the new efforts to protect the integrity of their system data and using IDH, which is Integrity Data Hub. I'm not always very good with acronyms, so you may want to look that one up, for security measures, but the average person understands that data integrity may be compromised through human error, whether malicious or unintentional, transfer errors, including unintended alterations or data compromise during transfer from one device to another, bugs, viruses, malware, hacking, and a long list of other cyber threats. And having the hub is not going to change that. Friends, I know you've been given a pile of data, and most of you are milling around, so I don't know if you've actually looked at it or not. But you need to decide when is enough actually enough? And where does the buck stop? Do you believe that the heads of our departments under the executive branch are ultimately responsible for how the department is run? And if so, is it your expectation that they take responsibility for their department failures, or that they show us that they have learned from their mistakes? Or are you okay with people trying to minimize their mistakes? Do we or do we not expect someone to put on their big boy pants and say, I've made a mistake and this is what I've learned? Or do you want to continue to hear excuses and grandiose explanations about software that they can't even practically explain to our body when asked? I don't have high expectations that I've changed anyone's mind today. However, we've now got a smattering of my concerns on the record, and I hope moving forward that you consider setting the bar higher for our well-paid department heads. As of 2022, Commissioner Albin had an annual salary of $147,522 according to public records. This salary is 204% higher than average and 247% higher than the median salary of those hard-working people in the Department of Labor. Friends, if we raise the bar, raise our standards, we will receive better outcomes for all Nebraskans. When are we finally going to start taking these appointments more seriously and truly address, in many of these appointments, the years of bad decisions and lack of learning from one's mistakes when we vote for these department heads and their appointments? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh and Senator Blood. Senator Conrad, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I was going to yield some time to my friend Senator Blood if she would so desire, but I think she may have concluded her remarks. Okay, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Conrad. Senator Raybold, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I also wanted to yield time to Senator Blood if she required more time.
Senator Blood, you're recognized for 4 minutes and 48 seconds.
Thank you, Madam President. I was going to pass on that time, but I think I'll just wrap it up. So anybody else wants to yield me time, this will be my last time on the mic, but thank you for that. It's unfortunate when we hand out things at your desks and they aren't read. I did see some people take pictures of them and text them to whomever, which I'm sure is how come we have this graph. I don't take what I did today lightly, but I can tell you that if you follow the history of this department, both before, during, and after the pandemic, you'll see that there are reasons to be concerned. And I've heard many of you say, well, everybody makes a mistake. Yes, people make mistakes. But the one thing that I always tell people is that you should always fall forward fast. And the reason I say that is because if you don't do that, you can't learn from your mistakes. Because you can't grow as a person, you can't grow as a leader, you can't grow as a supervisor unless you are learning from the mistakes that you made. And there was not a single hearing or interim study where I heard those words from the commissioner's mouth. There was finger pointing, as I noted earlier. Well, it happened in other states. But we're talking about Nebraska, and yes, it did happen in other states because there's a big cybersecurity issue in government across the United States. To talk about data and how talk about technology and how they're going to fix something, that's great, but if you don't know how the fix is really going to work, you shouldn't be talking about it. You should have a staff person who maybe is more qualified with IT to come and talk to us. I can drop words and sound important, but it doesn't mean I know what I'm talking about. And I would be the first to know, even though it sounds like I'm very techie, and I am, and I know a lot about technology, I clearly only know enough to be dangerous. But I know that I know a lot more than a lot of people in this body, just like you know a lot more about things that I don't know about. But we are talking about the leaders of our departments, and we know during the pandemic, there were a lot of employees that did work really hard, and they had to work really hard because they didn't have the what-if plan, because they didn't have the worst-case scenario plan. I don't know if you remember when Ebola was at issue, and they started bringing people to Nebraska to the med center, but I, at that time, wondered if that was going to be our pandemic, because it had been in other countries. We never know what's going to happen in Nebraska, be it fire, be it flood, be it famine. But I do know, as a government entity, it is their job to have a what-if plan, and we were unprepared. And not only were we unprepared, but we continued to make mistake after mistake after mistake and digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. Leadership is about learning from your mistakes. And you can say, well, the pandemic's over, so everything's going to be great and everything's going to be cool. It's not. Because these issues, when it came to cyber criminals, started before the pandemic. And if a 62-year-old grandmother can find things on the dark web that shows that we're an easy mark, then I'm guessing any general hacker could easily figure it out as well. Because believe it or not, it's not rocket science to hack. You could Google it right now and teach yourself in about 30 minutes. Please don't do that. Don't tell them Carol Blood sent you.
1 minute.
But seriously, I don't have high hopes that anybody listened. I don't have high hopes that anybody read the information on their desks. But I ask you to think about what you're voting for and maybe just not vote at all. Because we cannot keep rewarding folks who are not doing their job at a level where we have an expectation that they will be doing a much better job. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Raybold and Blood. See no one else in the queue. Senator Reapy, you're recognized to close on the committee confirmation report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to say this. If Senator Blood is on your committee, you're a fortunate committee. She's always well prepared. She does her homework and she knows what she's talking about, and so I commend her for that. One little detail that I think she missed on, she said that the vote that I had reported was not an 8-0, but it was a 6-2. And in fact, there's only 7 of us on the committee, so it must have been a 6-1. So I would like to correct that. Also, John Albin is not a perfect candidate. It was a very difficult situation. And one of the things that I did want to bring forward was for a year ending, fiscal year ending of 9/30/22, the fraud rate, and this is nothing necessarily to be proud about, but the fraud rate for like organizations nationally was 6.76%. Nebraska was 3.1. Improper payment rate nationally was 19.2, and Nebraska was 16.0. So while we had our shortcomings, we also performed better than the national standard. With that, I would encourage my fellow senators to vote for John Albin's confirmation with a green light. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Reapy. The question is the adoption of the report offered by the Business and Labor Committee. All those in favor, vote aye. All those opposed, vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
28 ayes, 2 nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for the next item.
Madam President, the next report is from the Health and Human Services Committee regarding the Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired.
Senator Hansen, you're recognized to open on the committee report.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, we have the fortunate, task of having quite a few reports here, and so in total I have 21 members. But luckily, we as a committee voted these out in blocks. And so what I will end up doing is going through each one of these categories in turn and reading each of the members that were in each one of these categories, and then we'll vote on each one of them as a whole. So the first one that we have here is a Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired. The Health and Human Services Committee is reporting Miguel Roca for confirmation by the legislature to the Nebraska Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Ms. Roca holds qualifications as a certified vocational rehabilitation counselor for the blind and as well as a vending facility certification, all from this very commission. Ms. Roca has also served as a mentor in the community and holds a genuine passion for making as positive of an impact as possible. I would ask for your green vote to approve Miguel Roca to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Seeing no one in the queue, Senator Hansen, you're recognized to close. Senator Hansen waives closing. The question is the adoption of the report offered by the Health and Human Services Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
34 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Madam President, the next report from the Health and Human Services Committee is for the Nebraska Child Abuse Prevention Fund Board.
Senator Hansen, you're recognized to open on the committee report.
Thank you, Madam President. In this one, we have two candidates. The Health and Human Services Committee is reporting Georgina Scurfield for confirmation by the legislature to the Nebraska Child Abuse Prevention Fund Board. Ms. Scurfield graduated high school in the United Kingdom before coming to Omaha and obtaining a master's in social work from UNO. She has spent nearly 2 decades as a director of court-appointed special advocates, or CASA, as it's more commonly known. It was during this work that she recognized the need for local support in order to better child welfare in our state. We would ask for your green vote to approve Georgina Scurfield. And then the second one in that category is Deacon Donald Blackbird Jr. Deacon Blackbird Jr. is currently serving on the board and is just completing his first term. In his professional life, he is the current principal for St. Augustine Elementary School in Winnebago. In addition, Deacon Blackbird Jr. holds several leadership roles in community, state, and national organizations. We would also ask for your green vote to approve Deacon Blackbird Jr. to the Nebraska Child Abuse Prevention Fund Board. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Seeing no one in the queue, Senator Hansen, you're recognized to close. Senator Hansen waives closing. The question before the body is whether or not to adopt the committee report or the confirmation report offered by the Health and Human Services Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
37 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for the next item.
Next report from the Health and Human Services Committee is 3 appointees to the Health Information Technology Board.
Senator Hansen, you're recognized to open on the committee confirmation report.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, as stated, this one will include 3 candidates, and this is for the Health Information Technology Board. First up is Dr. Douglas Haas for confirmation by the legislature. Dr. Douglas Haas received his BSN, MSN, PMC, and DNP all from UNMC College of Nursing, finishing up in 2020. Professionally, he is currently employed as a clinical assistant professor at the UNMC College of Nursing Kearney Division, where he primarily teaches the adult gerontology acute care nurse practitioner courses in the spring and fall semesters. Dr. Haas also teaches in the accelerated BSN program and traditional BSN externship during the summer and is the Kearney Division SNA advisor throughout the school history. We would ask for your green vote to approve Dr. Douglas Haas. Next up, let me make sure I get that right. Come here for a second. I have Dr. Douglas Haas twice. So that's Mark Lotta, right? It's not Douglas Haas, right? Okay, let's make sure. Okay, I was right. Just a typing error. Next up is Dr. Mark Lotta for confirmation to the Health Information Technology Board. Mark A. Lotta, DMD, MS, Professor of General Dentistry, served as Dean of Creighton University School of Dentistry from 2011 to 2021. Prior to the Dean's appointment, he served as the Associate Dean for Research at Creighton University School of Dentistry since 1995. We would also ask for your agreed vote to approve Dr. Mark Lotta. Next up, third up, is Philip Vucetic for confirmation. Dr. Vucetic practiced pharmacy in Nebraska for over 2 decades after receiving his degree from Creighton University School of Pharmacy in 1999. Currently, Dr. Vucetic is the president of ArcSign, a Nebraska-based healthcare information company established in 2011. Dr. Vucetic brings a unique expertise in technology and medicine, making him an excellent appointment to the Health Information Technology Board. And we would ask for your green vote to also approve Dr. Philip Vucetic to the Health Information Technology Board. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Hansen waives closing. The question is the adoption of the report offered by the Health and Human Services Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted who care to? Record, Mr. Clerk.
34 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for the next item.
Next report from Health and Human Services Committee is 4 appointees to the Nebraska Rural Health Advisory Commission.
Senator Hansen, you're welcome to open on your committee confirmation report.
Thank you, Madam President. This is for the Nebraska Rural Health Advisory Commission, and there are 4 applicants on this one. We will have one more later, just because that one was a later confirmation that we voted out separately. We'll get to that one in a little bit. But first up is Myra Stoney, to the confirmation legislature to the Rural Health Advisory Commission. Myra Stoney is currently serving as the health director for the Southwest Nebraska Public Health Department based in McCook, Nebraska. Ms. Stoney holds a long career in healthcare administration, previously serving rural health clinic manager as well as a nursing home administrator. She has previously served on the Nebraska Immunization Advisory Board and will bring a great mix of administrative and practical experience to the Rural Health Advisory Commission. We would ask for your green vote for Ms. Stoney. Next up, out of the 4 is Dr. Kate Hesser. Dr. Hesser lives and works as a family physician in Crete, Nebraska. She is currently the chief of staff at Crete Area Medical Center, as well as the official town doctor for the city of Crete. We believe the commission will benefit greatly from excellent academic and professional accolades, as well as her previous experience with the commission as a resident doctor. I would ask for your green vote to approve Dr. Kate Hesser. Third, should I get these right here? I have 2 for Dr. Kate Hesser. Oh, this one is Dr. Kusek, but we put Dr. Kate Hesser here. Dr. Kusek is from Crete. Okay, I'll go third up here. We do have April Dexter for confirmation to the Rural Health Advisory Commission. Mrs. Dexter grew up in rural Nebraska and currently lives on a ranch in rural northeast Nebraska, where she works as family nurse practitioner for a critical access hospital and health clinic in Atkinson, Nebraska. We believe the commission will benefit greatly from her passion for rural health care and previous experience as member of the Rural Health Commission. We would ask your vote to approve April Dexter on the floor today. Just to make sure I report the names of them outright, we just had a typing error here on this one. One was Dr. Catherine Kusek, and the other one is Kate Hesser. And third is April Dexter, and fourth is Myra Stoney. Those are the 4 candidates for the Nebraska Rural Health Advisory Commission. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Seeing no one in the queue, Senator Hansen, you're recognized to close. Senator Hansen waives closing. The question is the adoption of the report offered by the Health and Human Services Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
36 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for the next item.
Madam President, the next report is 8 appointees to the Board of Emergency Medical Services.
Senator Hansen, you're welcome to open on the committee confirmation report.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, and this is for the Board of EMS, or Emergency Medical Services, and we have 8 candidates in this one. Well, we'll be voting on as a group, so I will touch on each one of them here briefly. The first one up is Ryan Batenhorst. Mr. Batenhorst has had nearly 30 years of experience in several aspects of emergency medical services, including paid and volunteer emergency response, non-emergent and emergent patient transport, in and out of hospital patient care, and over the last 10 years has served as program director for the Southeast Community College Paramedic Program. He is currently enrolled in the Doctor of Education degree in interdisciplinary leadership at Creighton University, where he also serves as a paramedic program coordinator of the Creighton University EMS program. Next up is Karen Bolin. Karen Bolin is currently serving on the EMS board. She has a current Nebraska EMT license and has been an EMS instructor since 1989. She has been a volunteer for the American Heart Association, Nebraska State Volunteer Firefighters Association, and Nebraska Emergency Medical Services Association, and has received the statewide EMS Conference Kenneth Kimball Award and statewide EMS Greg Chamberlain Memorial Award. Next up is Prince Harrison. Mr. Harrison has worked at the University of Texas at Austin Dell Medical School, Dell Children's Medical Center, where he achieved the Pediatric Emergency Medicine Fellowship. He has worked at the Children's Hospital in Omaha since 2018 and has also attended an advocacy training session for the Pediatric Emergency Medicine Fellowship in Arlington, Virginia. Next is Linda Jensen. Linda Jensen is a registered nurse in Nebraska. She currently is a physician surrogate for volunteer rescue squads in Fort Calhoun, Irvington, and Ponca Hills. In addition, she has held positions as EMS coordinator, staff nurse, and clinical supervisor at Emmanuel Medical Center Emergency Department. Next is Jonathan L. Kilstrom. Jonathan Kilstrom received his BS in EMS at Creighton University and MPAS in Physician Assistant Studies at Union College. He is currently an instructor at the Yale University School of Medicine in New Haven, Connecticut, and is currently a certified physician assistant. Next up is Brent E. Lotman. Mr. Lotman currently is the Nemaha County Sheriff, adjunct instructor of criminal justice at Peru State College, and EMS instructor at Southeast Community College. He received his master's degree in legal studies from the University of Illinois and Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from Peru State College. Next up is James Smith. Dr. Smith is a residency-trained board-certified emergency medicine physician. He is the medical director for several BLS agencies, an interfacility transport agency, and a critical care flight team. Dr. Smith has served on the EMS board for 15 years and has been the chairman since 2015. Last but not least is Leslie L. Vaughn Jr. Leslie Vaughn Jr. is the Executive Director of the Emergency Responders Benefits Association and has served as the CEO of EMS Billing Services, Inc. He has received biology and civil engineering degree from the University of Nebraska at Omaha and construction management from the Metro Community College at Omaha, Nebraska. He also is licensed with the state of Nebraska in life and annuities. So with that, I would encourage my colleagues to vote green on this group of 8 for the Board of Emergency Medical Services. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Senator Bosselman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to speak a word on Dr. Smith's nomination. I've worked with Dr. Smith over the last 7 years, probably on EMS issues. He's been one who supports rural Nebraska. He understands rural Nebraska and the needs that we have across the state, how to meet those needs. We made significant changes, I think, to the EMS programs, as well as the training and the needs we have across the state. He's done a world of good, I think, for the EMS program and sitting on the board as a president. Whenever I have a question that need answers, I can call him and he responds to that. He is a valuable member, I think, to the board, especially understanding the needs of rural Nebraska and as well as urban Nebraska, but it really helps, I think, having him and his function with the hospitals out in North Platte and the areas that he serves out there to have him on the board. I encourage your green vote. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Bosselman. Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Hansen waives closing. The question before the body is the adoption of the report offered by the Health and Human Services Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
33 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
The next report from Health and Human Services is for one appointee to the Nebraska Rural Health Advisory Commission.
Senator Hansen, you're recognized to open on the confirmation report.
Thank you, Madam President. This is that 5th candidate for the Rural Health Advisory Commission that I mentioned earlier that we voted out separately. Dr. Fatigue has served on the Rural Health Advisory Commission for nearly 20 years. Being originally appointed on 2004, he currently serves as chairman of the commission. In addition to his service, he also works as the administrator and chief executive of the Nemaha County Hospital in Auburn, Nebraska. He has been a tremendous asset to the commission and our state's rural health care industry, so I would ask for your green vote to approve him to the Rural Health Advisory Commission. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Seeing no one in the queue, Senator Hansen waives closing. The question is the adoption of the report offered by the Health and Human Services Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
35 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for the next item.
Madam President, the next report from Health and Human Services is one appointment to the State Board of Health.
Senator Hansen, you're recognized to open on the confirmation report.
Thanks again, Madam President. The next two candidates for the State Board of Health, we did vote out separately. So the first one is Heather Kramer for your nomination for legislature to the State Board of Health. Heather Kramer has been active for over 25 years with a broad range of nursing experience, including ICU, emergency department, interventional radiology, and medical surgical. She has been an active volunteer and coach for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So with that, I would ask for your green vote to approve Heather Kramer to the State Board of Health. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Seeing no one in the queue, Senator Hansen waives closing. The question before the body is the adoption of the report offered by the Health and Human Services Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
29 ayes, 10 nays on the adoption of the report, Madam President.
The report is adopted. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Madam President, the second report from the Health and Human Services Committee is Jamie Kent Dodge to the State Board of Health.
Senator Hansen, you're recognized to open on the confirmation report.
Thank you, Madam President. Last but not least is Dr. Jamie Kent Dodge for confirmation by the legislature to the State Board of Health. Dr. Dodge is the physician owner of practicing outpatient family medicine. He received his Doctor of Medicine and residency from the University of Nebraska College of Medicine. He also practiced as hospitalist at Bryan Medical Center in Lincoln and was the Associate Director of Siouxland Medical Education Foundation. I would ask for your green vote to approve Dr. Jamie Kent Dodge to the State Board of Health. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition to Dr. Dodge's confirmation. Dr. Dodge has been on the Board of Health and sat on the Board of Health this year when testifying in support of LB 574 and then working with Senator Kauth and other members of the Board of Health to collude on a document that they pushed forward to show support of LB 574. I think it shows a pattern of politicizing the position and also a disregard for their own process. Members of the Board of Health should have recognize that they were circumventing their own process of a scope of practice credentialing review, or something that we call the 407 process. And instead of acknowledging that they were circumventing their own process, he instead participated in what is only can be described as hyper-partisan politics at the expense of the health and well-being of children and parental rights in this state. I have very grave concerns over the ability for Dr. Dodge to serve in this capacity, and I encourage everyone in here to not support his nomination and confirmation to the Board of Health. I always appreciate individuals in the state's willingness to serve our state in any capacity, but when somebody takes that position and abuses it, I feel obligated to stand up and speak in opposition to that. I have other concerns about Dr. Dodge's credentials and judgment, but essentially I think that he has tainted the waters of what the Board of Health is intended to do and how it's intended to operate, and has allowed the Board of Health to be used in political games. And I think that that is something that should concern everyone in this body. So I encourage you, colleagues, to not vote for Mr. Dodge's confirmation to the Board of Health and to vote red. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh. Senator Hunt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a hard no on this appointee. I think that we have a deep problem in this body of political appointees in positions where folks should really just be using their best medical, scientific, professional judgment. But instead, we're putting people in these positions to act politically. And I know that I don't know. I think that you guys got the text of the FOIA results from our inquiry into the Board of Health after they released that letter about LB 574. And specifically what Jamie Dodge said, just to get it on the record. This is a text between him and Senator Kathleen Kauth. She said, Jamie, this was on March 15th. And Kathleen Kauth, Senator Kauth said, Jamie, I've been talking to Speaker Arch today. Unfortunately, he is going to put LB 574 on the agenda for next Tuesday. We will not have the votes. We actually have senators missing, so he's going to try and clear the logjam with it. And he does not think Sports and Spaces is going to have time to be heard. So that was going to stay in committee. So next year we can just bring it on the floor anyway. Bummed, but hopefully the medical board can do something about it. But I could talk to you soon. Bye. And that was Senator Kauth's text to Jamie, this appointee. And in this text, we reveal that Senator Arch is helping to schedule LB 574 in a way that will help it pass. And also that Senator Arch has said that the Sports and Spaces, the bathroom bill, will just come up next year and they'll have to wait for that. And that Kathleen Kauth is disappointed about it and she wants this doctor's help to get a nudge from the Board of Health to get this bill passed. He replied with 3 voice notes that totaled about 45 seconds. So we don't know what his response was because he didn't type it out. He put it in a voice note. And Senator Kauth replied to those voice notes, if you could get it for Monday's meeting so I can present it Tuesday, that would be pretty amazing. But I know that's, and then it cuts off. Sure enough, on Sunday, the Board of Health met and produced a letter with no public notice, no public hearing, supporting the ban on trans health care, LB 574. Another text from between John Keane and Jamie. Jamie asks John, or actually this was John Keane asking Jamie, what do you think about it? Meaning the statement. He says, I thought it looked a little bit slow. This is Jamie. This is who we're voting on. He says, I thought the statement, looked a bit slow rollish and procedurally I had questions since Doug wasn't chair when it carried. I don't know how much to press the issue. Important thing is senators can look at it now. So because the Board of Health jammed this letter through when they didn't release a letter on motorcycle helmets or any of the other things that had been coming before the body, they made sure that their political view, not their professional view, not their medical view, not their scientific view, but their political view was here for us to consider. And then John Keane replied to that, principled conservative wins on these big social issues are few and far between. This was a really heavy lift, referring to the letter, and I think a significant victory today. Listen, 5 years ago, or even just a few years ago for that matter, the Board of Health taking a position of this nature would have been unthinkable. Great work, take some time to enjoy the win, then get back to work fighting for the cause. John Keane, a veterinarian, says that this Jamie guy is fighting for the cause being discrimination against trans Nebraskans. Screw this guy, man. I think he's a quack. I think that he should probably lose his license for this type of political collusion. And he is not worthy of this position. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. Senator Michaela Kavanaugh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Senator Hunt that he should not be appointed to this position. And I think it is incumbent upon this body to ensure that when we confirm gubernatorial appointments, that they meet a certain standard. And one of the standards should be, does this person openly discriminate against a minority population? And if the answer is yes, then we probably shouldn't confirm them to a gubernatorial appointed position. And in this instance, the answer is yes. Yes, Jamie Dodge openly discriminates against the LGBTQ community. He did so in numerous avenues. He did it through his testimony at LB 574. He did it through his work at the Board of Health. He did it in colluding with Senator Kathleen Kauth to ensure that the document came out of the Board of Health quickly, jammed through so much so that the potential chief medical officer who had his confirmation hearing last week was apparently unaware of the document and didn't know that it hadn't been well vetted because it was pushed through so quickly within the same day of a subcommittee. I think it is important that we maintain some level of integrity in the institutions in this state. And the Board of Health, for all its many problems, is an institution in this state that we should be protecting, and we should be attempting to instill some amount of integrity. We task them with making decisions about healthcare in our state, about rules and regulations, and there should be integrity in that. There should be honor in that. And this individual has shown a pattern of behavior of, at the very least, poor judgment. That's being very generous. So I hope that, colleagues, you stand against the confirmation of Jamie Dodge to the Board of Health, and we can move forward with our day. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Michaela Kavanaugh. Senator Frederickson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I too am rising in opposition to this appointment, this nomination. It's interesting. I think it's difficult because obviously the context of this and specifically the context of what we're talking about here is 574, and that's something that no one wants to talk about ever again. But I think that if we look at this kind of more globally, if we take out 574 and we just look at sort of what happened through the FOIA request here, this is something I think we need to pay attention to as a legislative body. We are a check and balance on these nominations. And I believe that based on the FOIA request, this is clearly showed, in my opinion, that this is an individual who is not always going to be listening to the best professional judgment in situations, that will put their personal judgment above their professional knowledge. And that in and of itself, I think, is a cardinal sin when it comes to medicine. And this is a obviously powerful position, and that is going to have impact on our state in a number of different ways. So taking the specific issues out of it, I think this is something that we need to, as the body that votes to confirm these appointments, we need to be considering what are the values of the people we are putting in these positions. Is there integrity that is in place? And are we doing what is best for Nebraskans, and are we making responsible choices here? So I will not be supporting this nomination. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Frederickson. Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Hansen waives closing. And the question is the adoption of the report offered by the Health and Human Services Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. There's been a request to place the House under call. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
29 ayes, 3 nays to go under call.
The House is under call. Senators, please record your presence. Those unexcused senators outside the chamber, please return to the chamber and record your presence. All unauthorized personnel, please leave the floor. The House is under call. Senator Breezy, please return to the chamber. The House is under call. All unexcused senators have returned to the chamber. Senator Hansen, would you be willing to accept call-in votes? So we are accepting call-in votes now.
Senator Lowe, voting yes. Senator Arch, voting yes. Senator Breezy, voting yes. Senator Holcroft, voting yes. Senator Linehan, voting yes. Senator Brewer, voting yes. Senator Ballard, voting yes. Senator Hardin, voting yes. Senator Hughes, voting yes. Senator Merman, voting yes. Senator Ibach, voting yes.
Record, Mr. Clerk.
30 ayes, 10 nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for the next item, I raise the call.
Madam President, the next report from the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee is to the Accountability and Disclosure Commission.
Senator Brewer, you're recognized to open on the confirmation report.
Thank you, Madam President. The Government Committee held a hearing for Janet Chung on March 23rd. She is a new appointment, and she will be replacing Ann Ashford. She'll be appointed to the Nebraska Accounting and Disclosure Commission. It was an excellent hearing. She was able to answer all questions of satisfaction. We believe that Ms. Chung will faithfully carry out the duties of the Nebraska Accounting and Disclosure Commission. The Government Committee recommends her confirmation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Seeing no one in the queue, Senator Brewer, you're recognized to close. Senator Brewer waives closing. The question is the adoption of the report offered by the Government Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted who would care to? Record, Mr. Clerk.
39 ayes, 1 nay on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Next item.
Madam President, the next report This one from the Education Committee is 2 appointees to the Board of Trustees of the Nebraska State Colleges.
Senator Merman, you're recognized to open on the committee report.
Thank you, Madam President. The first candidate is Carter Peterson, and he's a candidate for the Board of Trustees of the Nebraska State Colleges. He was voted 7-0 out of the Education Committee. Mr. Carter was appointed by Governor Pillen January 26, 2023. He's a graduate of Wayne State College. He began his career as a teacher and a coach at Windside High School. He has served on the Board of Trustees of the Nebraska State Colleges for 18 years and has also served on the Wayne High School Board of Education for 12 years. Additionally, Mr. Carter serves on the Wayne State Foundation Board as an executive member. Our state has been well served by Mr. Carter, and we are confident in his continued efforts. I'd appreciate a green vote for Carter Peterson.
Thank you, Senator Merman. Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Merman, you're recognized to close. Senator Merman waives closing. The question is the adoption of the report offered by the Education Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
34 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Next report from the Education Committee is for 2 appointees to the Nebraska Telecommunications Commission.
Senator Merman, you're recognized to open on the confirmation report.
The first nomination is Daniel O'Neill. His term of service is from August 30th, 2022 to January 12th, 2026. He was voted 7-0 by the Education Committee. Mr. O'Neill is a graduate of Sumner Eddyville Miller High School and the University of Nebraska Kearney. He is the president and CEO of Quick Stop Convenience Stores, a privately owned chain of 27 stores in Nebraska and Colorado. Mr. O'Neill has served his community in several roles during his career, such as Nebraska Public Media Foundation Board, Museum of Nebraska Art Board of Directors, UNMC Board of Counselors, Great Plains Health Board of Directors, Mid-Nebraska Community Foundation Board of Directors, UNL Board of Trustees. I encourage you to vote in affirmative for Mr. O'Neill's continued service.
Thank you, Senator Merman. Senator Merman, was this report for 2 nominees or just the one?
Okay. We also have Courtney Whitstruck for the Nebraska Educational Telecommunications Commission. Her term of service is from August 30th, 2022 to January 12th, 2023. And she was voted 7-0 by the Education Committee.
Thank you, Senator Merman. Seeing no one in the queue, Senator Merman, you're recognized to close on the committee report on these 2 nominations. Senator Merman waives closing. The question is the adoption of the report offered by the Education Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Mr. Clerk, please record.
38 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for the next item.
Next report, Madam President, is 2 appointments to the Coordinating Commission for Post-Secondary Education.
Senator Merman, you're recognized to open on both appointments.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, we have 2 appointments for the Coordinating Commission for Post-Secondary Education. First one is Molly O'Halloran, and her term of service is January 1st, 2022 to January 1st, 2028. She's voted 7-0 by the Education Committee. Ms. O'Halloran is a graduate of the UNL and a former English teacher at high schools in Nebraska and Kansas, as well as Mid-Plains Community College in North Platte, Nebraska. She has served her community and state in a variety of ways to include State Board of Education, District 7, National Association of State Boards of Education, Chairman on the Government Affairs Committee, North Platte Public Schools Board of Education President, North Platte Public Schools Foundation, Nebraska Association of School Boards Legislative Committee, Nebraska Council of Teacher Education. The other nomination is Tamara D. Weber. Her term of service is February 6, 2023 to January 1st, 2027. She's voted 7-0 by the Education Committee. Ms. Weber is a native of Shelby, Nebraska, and received a bachelor's degree from UNL in Business Administration, as well as an MBA from Wayne State College. She currently serves as co-chair for the Association of Women in Energy for the state's largest public power utility. She also serves as a board member for the Nebraska Energy Federal Credit Union and is a member of the Policy Committee. Previously, she served as the president of the St. Bonaventure Home and School Association. I encourage a green vote for both of these nominations.
Thank you, Senator Merman. Seeing no one in the queue, Senator Merman, you're recognized to close on these 2 nominations. Senator Merman waives closing. The question is the adoption of the report offered by the Education Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
37 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for the next item.
Madam President, the Education Committee would report on 2 appointees to the Board of Educational Lands and Funds.
Senator Merman, you're recognized to open on the 2 nominations.
Yes, we have 2 nominations for the Board of Education Lands and Funds. The first one is Robert H. Kobza. His term of service is October 2nd, 2022 to October 1st, 2027. He was voted 7-0 out of the Education Committee. Robert Kobza is a native of David City, Nebraska, and owns Kobza Ag and Home, a real estate auction and sales company. Mr. Kobza serves his community as a member of the Butler County Development Board. Additionally, he is a 2-time recipient of the Nebraska 4-H Supportive Business Award. The other nomination is Gerald Meyer. He was voted also 7-0 out of the Education Committee. Mr. Meyer currently serves as the chairperson of the Board of Education Lands and Funds. He previously served for 8 years on the Pawnee City School Board and also served as chairperson of the Leadership Council of the University of Nebraska Newman Center. We would be well served to vote in the affirmative on both of these nominations.
Thank you, Senator Merman. See no one in the queue. Senator Merman, you're recognized to close. Senator Merman waives closing. The question is the adoption of the committee report offered by the Education Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
37 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for the next item.
Next report from the Education Committee is for one appointee to the Technical Advisory Committee for Statewide Assessment. Senator, this is the one for Joshua Fields.
Senator Merman, you're recognized to open on this confirmation report.
Yes, we have two nominations for the Technical Advisory Committee on statewide assessment. The first one is Joshua P. Fields. His term of service would be November 23rd, 2022 to July 18th, 2025. He was voted out of the Education Committee. Mr. Fields has a doctorate in education from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and currently serves as the superintendent of public schools in Seward, Nebraska. He has served as a leader in public education for over 25 years and has compiled a list of accomplishments too long to list. The second nomination is Dr. Chad Buckendahl. He was voted 7-0 out of the Education Committee.
Senator Merman, I think we're just doing Mr. Fields in this particular vote.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Senator Merman.
Appreciate your green vote for Joshua P. Fields.
Seeing no one in the queue, Senator Merman, you're recognized to close on the committee confirmation report on Mr. Fields. Senator Merman waives closing. And the question is the adoption of the report offered by the Education Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, Mr. Clerk.
38 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for the next item.
Madam President, the next report regarding the Technical Advisory Committee for Statewide Assessment, Chad Buckendahl.
Senator Merman, you're recognized to open on this committee report.
Thank you, Madam President. I didn't think you'd notice I didn't have my jacket on. I didn't know that meant I was waiving clothing. But considering Chad Buckendahl for the Technical Advisor Committee on Statewide Assessment, he was voted 7-0 out of the Education Committee. Dr. Buckendahl earned a physical doctor in education psychology in 2000 from UNL, in addition to a master's of legal studies in 1996, also from UNL. He currently serves on the Educational Assessment and Accountability Advisory Committee for multiple states and for the Standards and Testings Agency in the United Kingdom. Dr. Buckendahl has made a career as an educational assessment expert and has dozens of publications to his credit. We would benefit from someone of his expertise while serving the Technical Advisory Committee on Statewide Assessment. I appreciate your green vote.
Thank you, Senator Merman. Seeing no one in the queue, Senator Merman, you're welcome to close on the confirmation report. Senator Merman waives closing. The question is the adoption of the report offered by the Education Committee. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Mr. Clerk, please record.
38 ayes, no nays on the adoption of the report.
The report is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for some items.
Thank you, Madam President. Legislative Bill 562, 562A, 705, 705A were presented to the governor today at 3:26 p.m. I have a motion to reconsider the vote on the confirmation of Jason Hayes to the Public Employees Retirement Board. Motions to override vetoes, Senator Walls to 814, Senator Conrad to 814. Two motions from Senator Conrad. An amendment to be printed to 514 from Senator Brewer. Name add Senator Frederickson to 157, Senator Vargas to 531, Senator Vargas to 562, and Senator Reapy to withdraw from 575. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Speaker Arch for an announcement.
Thank you, Madam President. As previously announced, we will now stand at ease while the revisor's office engrosses legislative bills in advance this morning on select file. These bills will need to be read across today to allow for the constitutionally required layover day before we take them up on final reading on Thursday, so we will now stand at ease. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Clerk?
Mr. President, your Committee on Enrollment Review reports Legislative Bill 50A, 157, 514, and 514A, and 531A as correctly engrossed and placed on final reading. Notice that the Executive Board will have a meeting tomorrow in room 1525 at 8:30 a.m. Executive Board meeting tomorrow, room 1525 at 8:30 a.m. Additionally, the General Affairs Committee will meet for an executive session tomorrow under the north balcony at 9:15. Exec session, General Affairs tomorrow on the north balcony at 9:15. Mr. President, priority motion. Senator Ballard moved to adjourn the body until Wednesday, May 31st, 2023 at 9:00 a.m.
Senators, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. We are adjourned.